Alright, welcome to another video of Crocotile 3D. In this video we'll be going over some animation features. You may want to check out the documentation first because animation system is still kind of experimental and it's in development, so things might change, things might get improved, and it'll be a good idea to check the documentation first, depending on when you're watching this video. So to start, basically you'll want to have some objects created that you want to animate. And you could also animate bones. If you have an object skinned with a skeleton, you can do that too. But just to keep things simple, I'm going to use the block tool and just create a block, and I'll position the crosshair in the center of it. I'll select all the tiles using Control A, and then I'll right click, go to faces, and create objects. So we have this object created, and now you can see it's listed in the scene. I'll rename it to box. Okay. Now we can animate this object, this instance. We could create a couple of instances here. If we select that, now we can kind of place a couple instances, and we can animate each one. You can see them listed down here. And we could give them unique names if we want, just to help. If we go into Edit and Window, we could open the Animation panel. And so now when we select one of these instances, it'll be listed down here. We can select more than one, and if we deselect them, they'll kind of get removed from the list. But if you don't want that to happen, you just click these pin buttons, and now if any of them get selected, they'll still be listed here. So that might be useful. So let's animate the first one that we created, and I can hit the C key to center the camera on it. So to kind of explain what's listed here, we have this first drop down box shows what actions this instance has. Since it doesn't have any, nothing's listed, so we'll have to create a new action. So we go add new action, creates the action here, and we'll give it a new name. I'll just call it move. Okay, so we've added an action and we've renamed it. Now we can choose which attribute to animate. We could animate the position, the rotation, scale. In this case, we'll animate the position, and you can choose which component to animate. I'll just create a keyframe, and then I'll move the playhead to another time, in this case 2 seconds, and I'll move the object, I'll move it over here, and then I'll add another keyframe. So now, if we play it, the object moves. Okay. Now you could change the interpolation of it. In this case, we used a linear, and this drop-down box defines which interpolation is used when you create new keyframes. But if you want to change the interpolation of keyframes that have already been added, you just select them and right click, go apply interpolation. In this case, I'll do ease in, ease out, and now when we play it, it looks a bit smoother, or has that easing in, easing out interpolation. Okay, so that's one way of controlling the interpolation and how things move and get animated. you can copy keyframes and paste keyframes. So let's say I wanted to copy these keyframes. I could do that, just copy them, and I could paste them into another object. First we need to add a new action, and I can paste those there. Okay, so since they're the same, since they're animating the position, they're both at the same position now. So both of them are being animated at the same time in the same position. I could change that so that they get animated. I clicked and dragged the keyframes. So now they're not in sync anymore. Now you can see both of them are getting animated. Okay. And it just looks that way because it was invisible before because there's no keyframe at the beginning. So you can see how now I changed one to have a longer duration, and that's why they don't line up, because one's moving slower than the other one. Okay. Now, when you're assigning keyframes, if the animation is completely stopped, and that means when you move something, you're moving its original position and properties. But if you're in pause mode and you move stuff, say you move it over here and you move this one over here, when you stop the animation, they return to wherever their default position rotation is. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So if you want to make changes without like changing their default position, just go into pause mode and make changes there, and then you can assign the keyframes and that sort of thing. Okay, so once you have actions, you could add multiple actions too. So you can say we want another action, just add a new action, and you could select between them. And for this one, I'll rename this action move to. Okay, and or maybe I'll rename it rotate, and I'll position the playhead at the beginning, and I'll choose rotation, and I'll add a keyframe, and I have two objects there at the moment, and I don't want them together, so I'll turn this action off. Okay. So now we have the rotation. This is the original box. If I go into the rotate mode, the gizmo, I can move the playhead and then rotate this whatever orientation that I want. Let's say I want it like that. I could add a keyframe, and now if I play this, it'll rotate from the previous orientation to the new orientation. Okay. If I go back into the move action and play that, it'll move it like that. Okay? So I can play each action separately. Maybe I want this one to move the same, maybe quicker, like that. So now, when you've created a bunch of actions, you can go into the theater panel, and you can create a new act. And this will be like an act in a movie or short video or something like that. You could have multiple acts that play after each other. And you could choose the actor that acts in the act. So in this case, we'll choose the first object. And we'll choose in animation to play. In this case, we'll choose to move animation or action, and we'll add that action. And we can move it around. In this case, we'll just put it at the start. And then we could add a rotate. So this object will act out both of these actions whenever the playhead scans across this segment. Okay, so in this case, we'll have the rotate action play towards the last half of the move action. Okay, so if we hit play, it'll start moving and then it'll start rotating. So you can see, there it goes, and it rotates. So this way you could combine actions and also objects. You could have other objects animated as well. So we also have box 2 animated. We could add that. It adds it wherever your playhead is. So let's move it. Let's say we have it animated there. So now let's play it. So now we have 2 objects animated in the theater in this specific act. And you could also, you can add more than one action for a specific object. So let's go back to the object and have move. Let's do another rotate. We could have a rotate here. We could have it anywhere basically. We could have it over here, for instance. So if we play this, it moves, it rotates, then does nothing, and then it rotates again because we have another rotate action happening. Okay. Now we could also adjust the length of these segments. We can make them shorter so that it only plays a short bit of it. So for instance, if we have it like that and then we play it, notice how it just plays a little bit. We could also extend this out further and then hit this loop button and it'll continuously loop the animation for as long as the segment is. You can see it rotating up there. So that's, you can kind of choreograph all the actions and animations that your objects and things have in your scene in specific acts. Okay, like Act 1, Act 2, etc. And you could add specific weights. You can kind of control the weights. So like in this case, let's move this one out of the way over there. So we have this box object with the move and rotate actions. we could give them specific weights. If they're animating the same thing, the same attribute, like if you have an action that's moving it one place and then another action that's moving it some other place, you can kind of like blend those actions together. So let's go back to the animation panel and we'll choose the move action. You can see it here and it's moving it like that. Let's add a new action and let's rename it move 2. Okay, and we're gonna animate the position. Let's create a keyframe at the origin or wherever it's currently at, and then we'll move it. I guess we'll animate it right there and let's change the gizmo back to that position. We'll move it over there instead. Okay, so now we have it animating like that. This also changed its rotation because it was set from creating the rotation action earlier. Okay, so now let's see. If we play it, it animates from there to there, okay, for this specific one. And if we change the action to the first one, it moves it over there. So now I'm also going to, I guess it doesn't matter if they're the same length, but anyways, I'll go to the theater, and now if we add this new action, you can see how both of them are going to want to move to their positions, but they're positioned at two different places. So let's see what happens. Look at that. It's kind of blended between both actions. So it doesn't go to either position, it kind of goes in between them because it's kind of blended, it's kind of balanced between them. So we can select this. If I select this box here, this is a weight, and I can use the mouse scroll wheel to kind of move it up and down, and this adjusts the level of influence this action has over the object. So if I move this down, it'll have less of an influence over the object. Okay, so if I play it again, it's going to move more towards the first action that we had because that one has more influence over the object. Okay, so you can kind of control the weight, and you can also add more weights. You can add more weights by right-clicking and adding a weight. So I'll click here, add weight, and I'll just do linear, I guess. And if I move it over there and rotate it, it'll kind of affect, I think it'll affect the ease in, ease out. You can change, I think the first weight is a discrete interpolation. That's why it shows this dotted line here, because it doesn't interpolate when it's discrete. It's just like a nearest neighbor sort of interpolation. So I could change that interpolation to linear, for instance, and now you can see this dotted line here shows how the weight changes over time. It'll increase and become more over time, and maybe I can decrease that. So at the beginning it'll have no influence. This action will have no influence, but as it gets towards the end it'll have greater influence. And I could do the same thing for the other action, but let's see how it looks first. You can see how it does that. So, yeah. Let me see how it looks like that. If it looks any different. Yeah, you can see how the influence goes down over time, so now it's more weighted towards the right because the first movement position goes over to that location. You can see how the weight kind of changes stuff. So if I instead put the weight down there and have it increase over time, and then we go over to this object and add a linear weight over here, and maybe it starts with a lot of influence and then it decreases and has no influence. Let's see how that looks. So it goes over there. So you kind of can mess around with the weight. Oops, edited the wrong one. Let's see how that looks. So anyways, you can kind of play with the weights and how things blend, how the different actions blend together. And yeah. If you want to change the interpolation, you just select the weights that you want to change and then right click, apply interpolation, and choose the type of interpolation. You can see how the line changes and how the animation changes. You can see it looks a bit more smooth as it blends, and that sort of thing. Okay, so you kind of compose your actions and animations and all that stuff. And if you double click on the object, you can kind of change which animation's being played. For instance, if I don't want that to be a move, you could just change it. That sort of thing. And clicking the eye disables the action, and you can enable it, and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of useful. And then when you want to, you can export, you could render the movie by going to Edit, Render Movie, and then just select the actions that you want to export. If you have multiple actions, you could select multiple ones. I think you hold Shift down or Control and select multiple actions, or X. You can set the resolution and the format. And there's more information in the documentation as to how this stuff works, like the different formats. If you want to export PNGs, you could use a tool to kind of combine all the images together into a MP4 file, and there's information in the documentation as to how to do that. You can set the quality and then just render it, basically. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I haven't covered. there is UV animation. You can animate UVs. So, for instance, if I edit an object and let's say I choose this tile, I could add an animation here, and this animation has a UV animation frames. I could add more frames. I'll just copy this one and paste it and put it over there. And I'll put this one over there. Okay, so we have 3 frames in this animation, and then I'll apply it to that tile that I have selected. So now this tile has an animation playing, and I can choose which animation gets played in the theater panel, but I need more animations, more than one. So I'll just duplicate this animation, and then I'll just put it like there for now. Okay, and I'll change the animation names. I'll do box UV, and I'll do box UV 2. And now we have 2 UV animations. And if I go over here, I could choose the box and a UV animation. So let's add a UV animation right here. And you can see it says none. There's none selected yet. So we have to go in here by double clicking the name, or next to the name, to open the properties and choose which UV animation. In this case, I'll do this one. So now this segment has this box UV animation playing, okay? And then I'll add another one, UV animation, and I'll add it right there, and I'll do the same thing, but in this case I'll choose box UV 2, okay? So now they should change animations when it's played. Let's see what happens. Oops, what's going on here? Oh, I'm in object edit mode still, so I have to exit that by pressing enter. Okay, so I was in object edit mode, I exited it, and now since we're animating stuff, it won't play unless the animation plays. So let's hit play and see what happens. So it's playing that, and then it plays the other one. Okay, and then it goes back to the default animation. Okay. So these aren't looping. I think that's why it just plays once. So it plays the animation once because it doesn't loop. So let's loop these and see what happens. So now it's looping, and it goes to the other one, and then it goes back to the default. So when it just chooses a default animation when no segments are playing. So let's move this and drag that out like that. See what happens. So you can kind of see how you can kind of control which animation gets played based on the segments that you have down here. So I could add another one, for instance, and just move it here. See, I wonder if I play them. Yeah. Okay, so the order You can click and drag these and like reposition them, and you can see how this one takes precedence over the other one based on how they're layered. So you kind of choreograph different things and get kind of creative with your animation and stuff like that. Okay, so that's how you would animate the UVs in the theater panel. So I think that basically covers most of the animation stuff. You can kind of select stuff and align the selection, like if you want to like realign stuff, like that, for instance. You can undo, redo, things like that. If you want to delete something, you just select it and hit delete. Same with keyframes, just select it and hit delete or undo, and that sort of stuff. So I'll leave you with that for now. And if there's any changes in the future, I'll have to create a new video and that sort of thing. Remember to check the documentation. If you need more help with anything, you could join the Crocotile Discord server. And yeah, check out crocotile3d.com if you haven't already, and that'll be it. Thanks for watching.